Let's start with the prayers. Om Sahana Bhavato Sahanau Bhunakto Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We are studying Panchadasi, chapter 3, called Panchakosha Viveka Prakaranam. When we study Panchadasi, we study almost all the important topics which are covered in Vedanta and in Upanishads. These chapters, even though they are independent by themselves, each chapter conveys the final truth. Each of these chapters is trying to convey the truth which is described as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Panchakosha Viveka is done in Taittiriya Upanishad. And this is a very, very important Upanishad for all seekers, as it is one of the direct methods of realizing the self. Direct method is a very beautiful Upanishad, like Mandukya Upanishad. In Mandukya, we have three avasthas, three states of consciousness. And then what the Upanishad says is you drop the three avasthas and whatever remains is your real nature. In this chapter, Taittiriya Upanishad is the background material which we have to keep in mind. Whatever is beyond the five koshas is the self. So the author has very beautifully structured this chapter. He described what are the five koshas in about 12 verses. And then from 13th verse onwards, he starts directly revealing the self. 12 verses to say, I am not the Anatma Panchakoshas. From the 13th verse till the end, he says, I am Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That's all. These are the two topics in this entire third chapter of Panchadasi. The analysis of the Satyam Jnanam Anantam is very deep in this chapter. And for those who are interested, like I have said before, if you have finished this chapter and you want to have still more in depth of these three words, because these three words, if you understand clearly, you will absolutely have no problem to realize your nature. Three words, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Shankaracharya, in his Bhashyam of Taittiriya Upanishads, discusses these three words with a lot of analysis with reference to a Purva Pakshi. He brings up an inquiry, a question, as if it is asked by one opponent of this system. And then he answers that question and establishes the fact that what Upanishad is revealing is the truth, which is called as Advaitam. We have done so far 21 verses. We are in the 22nd verse. From the 13th verse to 28th verse, We are in the 22nd verse now. Up till 28th verse, the analysis of jnanam is being done. Out of the three words, normally the word jnanam is the most analyzed compared to satyam and ananta. Because jnanam is very, very difficult for us to understand because it is mixed with the truth. We will study the jnanam portion more detail as we go along in these verses. But so far what we have covered in the 21st verse was that if you remove the perception, in the perception of our normal day-to-day life, if you remove the objects, what remains is consciousness. That is the truth. That was said in the 21st verse. And in earlier verses, he had said that the self is not an object. It cannot be known as an object. Self is the subject. And the only way you can know the subject is, I am that consciousness. I am that truth. Whatever is being revealed as the truth, you should say, I am that truth. It is of the nature of consciousness. Okay, I am of the nature of consciousness. It is of the nature of awareness. I am of the nature of awareness. It is of the nature of pure existence. I am of the nature of pure existence. So now we will go to the 22nd verse where we stopped last time. And in this verse, Swami Vidyaranyat says that Sakshi of the five Koshas, that means the witness of the five Koshas, is not at all involved in the transactions. It is never affected by the transactions. That means what? In my real nature, I am a witness to whatever is happening, whatever is the body is doing, the mind is doing. The witness is my real nature. But today, what do I say? This body is mine, the mind is mine. This is where the confusion lies. If I am able to realize that I am not this body, I am not the mind, then automatically this world will drop off. What will remain? Pure Atma will remain. That Atma is called as Sakshi. So this verse says, dismissing the objective element. What is the objective element? The five sheaths. With reference to what? With reference to the witness. With reference to consciousness, the five sheaths, Annamaya Kosha, Manomaya Kosha, Vijnanamaya Kosha, Pranamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha, they are all objects for this consciousness. So when I remove this five sheaths, what remains is the pure self. Pure consciousness remains. It is a positive entity. It is not a negative entity. It is not non-existence. So what we do is we reject the five koshas as anatma, and whatever remains, we say that is atma. Sakshat ikshate. Directly we can perceive this, we can know this Sakshi. You see, what usually we say in Vedanta is that the self cannot be known. You should always add the word directly. Self cannot be known directly. Words cannot express what the self is directly, but words and this self can be known indirectly. That is why indicators, Lakshana Vakyas are used. Sakshi doesn't know the mind through the eyes or through the thoughts or instruments. See, the easiest way to know what the Sakshi is through our thoughts. If you ask yourself, who knows, what knows in this body the emotions I have? I was very happy, I was very sad, I was very jealous, I was angry, I have love, I have compassion. All these emotions, there is a factor in this body which knows it. Body is inert, these emotions by themselves are inert. What gives life to these emotions is the light of consciousness. And these emotions are not there in sleep. But do I exist in sleep? Yes. So what does this prove? See, in our normal waking state, we have this knowledge of the world. We have knowledge of the body. We have knowledge of the mind. We have knowledge of the emotions. But in the sleep state, this knowledge is not there. Therefore, Shankaracharya beautifully analyzes this phenomena of sleep and waking. The waking state, he says, is vritti jnanam. This is what we are going to meditate also today. There's a meditation, a very important meditation today on this topic. We're going to meditate on a verse from Vedantic Upanishad, but the content of that meditation is this aspect. Vritti jnanam, swarupa jnanam. Try to understand the difference between these two jnanams. If your mind is able to go through that path of discrimination between these two, you will definitely understand what your real nature is. This is very clear. This analysis, which I am now discussing, if you can do it in your own mind, you will fall into the lap of your pure nature. What is this analysis? Listen very carefully. The two knowledges. What is the knowledge when I'm a waker? When I'm waker, I have the knowledge. I am the body. I am the mind. I am interacting with the world. It is Dvaitam. It is vritti jnanam. Whatever perceptions I get from the objects of the world are transmitted into my mind through the five sense organs, and whatever thoughts are generated in my mind, that is what is called as vritti jnanam. Perceptions, my own conceptualizations, and my emotions. These three together form the vritti jnana. This is a changing phenomena. It just keeps on changing right from morning when I wake up till the night. This vritti keeps on changing. I may be sitting in a beach. I may be sitting in the office. I may be in an operation theater, performing a surgery. I may be in a classroom learning. I may be in a college. I may be in the kitchen cooking. I may be farming. I may be doing so many things. All that, Shankaracharya says, is vritti jnanam. Vritti jnanam is an appearance. It comes and goes. It is mithya jnanam. It is false knowledge. What is the right knowledge? The right knowledge is sakshi jnanam. Does Sakshi exist during the Vyavahara state? Yes, it exists. But our attention is extrovert, therefore we don't realize this Sakshi. What happens in the sleep state? The vrittis are not there. The mind has gone to sleep. What has happened is I alone am. That is called as the knowledge of Atma. That is the knowledge of Swarupa Jnanam. Isn't it so simple? Swarupa Jnanam is without the Vritti Jnanam. There is no Vritti. How do I differentiate between Swarupa Jnanam and Vritti Jnanam? Whenever the mind is awake, it is Vritti Jnanam. Whenever the mind has gone to sleep, it is Swarupa Jnanam. I claim Swarupa Jnanam as my real nature and I go through the Vritti Jnanam to fulfill my prarabdha karma during the Vyavaharika level. Whatever it may be good, it may be bad, you may be indifferent, let it go on. But what the Upanishad and the what the Vidyaranya says very clearly is, this Sakshi is not at all affected by whatever happens in the Vyavahara, because this is a higher level. It is Paramarthika Satyam, it is Lakshyartha. What is Vritti Jnanam is Vachyartha. So Jnanam, Vachyartha is Vritti Jnanam. Jnanam, Lakshyartha is Swarupa Jnanam. For those who are familiar with Vachyartha, Lakshyartha is higher level. Paramarthika, Lakshana. Lakshana means indicative. Through Lakshana, through indication, I can realize that I am the Swarupa, Sakshi. My status, my real status is Swarupa Jnanam. Is it emptiness, blankness? No. It is positive entity. It is called as Sakshi. If you have understood this, whatever you may learn about Atma, Anatma will be very clear. But this has to sink into your consciousness. I am that pure self. I am that pure self, which has been revealed by Shankaracharya, which has been revealed by Vidyaranya Swami. That is my real status, and the mind will undergo changes during the waking state. You cannot avoid it. Nobody can avoid this. When you have risen to the level of Sakshi Jnanam, Sakshi Swarupa Jnanam, then alone you can say that the Vyavaharika Satya is Mithya. So therefore, Vidyaranya says there should be no I-ness in the 5 koshas. Let the 5 koshas come, it's a part of the world. The mind knows objects through a thought, but this thought is absent in the sleep state. Therefore, there are no objects. In that state, what happens? It is objectless awareness. In the sleep state, what really happens is it is objectless awareness. And that objectless awareness is my real nature. The senses and the mind, they are a medium. They borrow light of consciousness from Atma. And then they become knower. Whereas Sakshi is a knower, not by borrowing any light. It is a knower by its as nature. What does it know? It knows that I alone am. That's all. That is the nature of Sakshi. It knows that I alone am. So this is the final realization which you will have when you get to reach this Sakshi, it will only, all of us will have the same knowledge. I alone am as the Sakshi. Five koshas are involved in all transactions. Five koshas are rejected as non-self or anatma. Whereas Sakshi is a mediumless knower. Mediumless means what? Without the medium of the mind and the sense organs, it is a knower, means by nature. By nature, it is of the nature of consciousness. Consciousness is always self-aware. So when you take out the consciousness alone from the waking state, from the dream state, from the sleep state, by the process of bhaga, tyaga, lakshana. I have explained this before. What you need to do is you have to retain the consciousness and then drop off the anatma. That is how you realize this Sakshi. This is the ultimate pinnacle of Vedanta, where you are able to realize the nature of pure awareness. What remains after negation of the five koshas? It is the illuminator of five koshas. And that is what is called as the self or Brahman. And that is what is also called as God. So all these names are only names, they only refer to the pure awareness, Nirguna Brahman. So through the Panchakosha Viveka, we know ourself. The Vishaya is called as the five koshas. The Vishayi is the supreme reality. That supreme reality is Nitya Muktaha Buddhaha. Buddhaha means pure, Shuddha, without any impurities. And it is of the nature of knowledge. And it is because it is of the nature of knowledge, then we say we get the knowledge of the world through the mind. So pure knowledge is called as absolute knowledge, which is my nature. But what knowledge I get in the waking state is objective knowledge. So there is one school of thought which says, then when these five koshas are not there, there is only shunyam. Shunyam means there is only blankness, non-existence. This is what Shankaracharya refutes. He says it is not blankness. What you call blankness is nothing but consciousness. That is being revealed by the Shruti, by the Veda. That is what is being revealed. Whenever the Shruti says, whenever the Upanishads say, for example, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, or it describes Turiyam, na anta prajnam, na bahish pratyam, no vaya pratyam, or in Mundaka Upanishad, Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam, it doesn't have a body, it doesn't have senses, it doesn't have all that. You know, whatever you may think about, it is not that. That is why there is a very important verse in which I have also taken before, is in Taittiriya Upanishad. It says, Yato vacho nivartante. Yato vacho nivartante means what? Mind cannot think about that consciousness. The speech, our speech cannot describe that consciousness. Therefore, this is an indicator for what? Whenever you sit in meditation, you tell yourself, I cannot think about the nature of the self. I cannot even talk about it. Words cannot express. My mind cannot think. Automatically, the mind drops and says, okay, there is no use thinking. The mind says, okay, there is no use me thinking about Atma because it cannot be put in the form of words. And you will come and settle down into your own abidance in the self when you use these vakyas. So absence of pure consciousness is not there because it is always there. It is Nitya Swarupa. It is Nitya Shuddha. It's ever evident as awareness. That is how I should meditate. I am the pure awareness, full stop. And then you see, watch your mind. It will be very quiet. Durgatam, impossible to say nothing remains. That means there is Atma. So what is the conclusion of this 22nd mantra? Consciousness is self-luminous. You remove the 5 sheaths, what remains is the illuminator of 5 sheaths. And it is a solid presence. It is not something which is absent. Therefore, Atma is not blankness, it is not non-existence, but it is pure existence. Now let's go to the 23rd verse. So the 23rd verse up to 28th verse is a continuation of Jnana.
Asti tavat swayam nama, asti tavat swayam nama, vivada vishayatvatah, vivada vishayatvatah, swasminna api vivadaschet, swasminna api vivadaschet, prativadhyatra ko bhavet, Prativadyatra ko bhavet.
Here, Swami Vidyaranya says, self certainly exists and it is never shunyam. He is reasserting that sentence because this was the belief of during Shankaracharya's time and Vidyaranya's time. This was a very strong philosophy that there is nothing in this world. Many people believed it and they were in trouble because it was not the truth. So here he says, oneself is surely existing. You can never say, I don't exist. You can never say that I will have the experience of non-existence. It is not possible. So therefore, he says there cannot be any opponent who will say that there is non-existence alone. Because then he himself is saying, I don't exist myself. That is how Vidyaranya and Shankaracharya, both they counter this argument. So one's self is surely existing. There is no opposition to that at any time. In waking, you are existing. In dream, you are existing. In sleep, you are existing. So at what time can you say that I was non-existent? Right from birth till now, can I say I was, you may think that when the body is dropped, you are non-existence. You become non-existence. You become shunya. That's what you may believe. But the Shruti says you cannot become that because your nature is existence. How do I know that I'm existent after the fall of the body? The Shruti also says, how do you know that you existed during your sleep state without the body? Same way. In the sleep state also, you don't experience your body. You don't experience the world, but you are there. So similarly, after the fall of the body, you will be there. That's all. In what form? In the same form as you are now in your sleep state. At the beginning of discussion, you are there. At the end, you are there. During the middle also, you are there. Don't doubt your presence of existence at any point of time. Past, present, and future, the self alone is. That is the Shruti Vakyam. That is said by the Veda. Past, present, and future, the self alone is. There is an entity, which is what the Upanishad is revealing to us. Our eyes will not be able to see it, but the Upanishad is the eye for us to realize, recognize that nature. Self is asti, not nasti. If it is nasti, then there will be many problems. So what the Advaitin says is that always remember, you can only say, I am the pure existence, consciousness. I will ever be that. And that way we can get rid of our sorrows in life. See, once the mind gets used to this type of repeated thinking, what happens is this becomes a vasana. This becomes my nature. In the next verse, 24th verse.
Sva asattvatu na kasmaichid. Sva asattvatu na kasmaichid. Rochate vibramam vina. Rochate vibramam vina. Ata eva shrutih badham. Ata eva shrutih badham. Brute cha asatvavadina. Brute cha asatvavadina.
So the author says, suppose you say, you hear also some people saying that in the sleep state, I do not exist. So here, what Vidyaranya says is, if you make such a statement, it is delusion. It is born out of delusion. Vibramam. If at all you say that there is nothing in the world and I do not exist in the sleep state, then it is Brahmam. Brahmam means delusion. And in the normal waking state, he always will say, let me always be there. Everybody, even if a person is 98 years old, he will say, let me always be there. Nobody would like to say that, let me not be there. So that itself shows that the nature of our self is existence. Because we all are existing all the time. In pain, suffering, or in abnormal state, you may complain for a short period of time. Again, that is due to delusion. Asanneva bhavati. Asad brahmeti vedchet. Asti brahmeti chet veda. So this is what Taittiriya Upanishad says. It says that if one knows Brahman as non-existence, he himself will become non-existence. Because that pure existence happens to be himself. This is from Taittiriya Upanishad. And the self is called Brahman in Upanishads. Brahman is another word for that pure existence. Asat Brahma iti chet, what does it mean? The Shunyavada will say that let Brahman not be there. Then what he will, this is a hypothetical statement which is made by Vidyaranya Swami. He says if that pure existence is not there, because I don't see it, therefore I conclude that it is not there. Atosya mam bhut vedavyam swasyar tvatvame bhuvar. See, the self is a subject, it is not the object. So after negating the five koshas, you again don't try to experience as the self as an object. That is what we all make a mistake. We have to accept its presence as what? As the subject. So even when you are thinking about it during the Shravanam, during the class, during these sessions, what is the nature of that self? You should think in the lines that it is my nature. It is my own nature. It is the subject. And it can never be objectified. And its existence can never be denied, because the one who is seeing this is the self. The one which is thinking about this is the self. In deep sleep state, I know I am not there. I know means what? The nature of consciousness, bodha swarupam. This bodha swarupam is awake all the time. That is why I said this is that swarupa jnanam, pure nature of knowledge, where it alone is. From this state, what happens? I am aware the ego I, appearance and disappearance. The ego I comes and goes. It goes off in sleep. The ego I is this small I. And who watches this absence of this ego? It is this self. It is the Sakshi. So now it'll be very clear, waker, dreamer, sleeper are nothing but small I, which is the ego I. And it is the Sakshi which is aware of this ego, small ego I. All of you, if you can realize this, even now, there is a state in which I don't have this body, but I exist. That is what is called as the Advaitha State. That is the non-dual state in which the entire cosmos gets resolved. And that is what is called as Swarupa Jnana. Next verse.
असत् ब्रह्मेति चेद्वेद असत् ब्रह्मेति चेद्वेद स्वयमेवा भवेत् असत् स्वयमेवा भवेत् असत् अतो अस्य मा भूद्वेद्यत्वम् अतो अस्य मा भूद्वेद्यत्वम् स्वसत्वं त्वभ्युपेयताम् स्वसत्वं त्वभ्युपेयताम्.
This is a verse which will explain to us the Mandukya Upanishad very clearly. The self exists in three periods of time: past, present, and future. Waking, dream, and sleep, the self alone exists. The mind comes and goes, it is an appearance. That is what is the essence of this verse. Swa sattvam tu abhyupetam. Nobody can deny one's own existence. You see, it's a repetition of this again and again by Vidyaranya Swami, so that we all can get rid of this one notion that I do not exist after the fall of the body. That is a notion in the mind, it is not a fact. The fact is, I am the pure existence, consciousness, limitlessness. That is the truth revealed by the Upanishad, which I'm trying to realize. The self need not be seen and the self is there. That is what is the argument here by by Vidyaranya. Who am I? The self plus the five koshas. In knowledge, what is there? The self plus no ignorance is there because there is knowledge. In ignorance, what is there? I am there with the five koshas. So, what is the difference between knowledge and ignorance? It is vritti jnanam. Vritti jnanam is the knowledge with the thoughts of the five koshas. That is what is called as ignorance. But what do we normally think? Normally we say our waking state is a knowledge, is a state of knowledge because we experience the world. But the Shruti, the Veda says, what you are seeing, what you are experiencing is a state of ignorance because you do not know your real state, which is the Atma, which is the Brahman, which is the pure state. In the pure state, there is no ignorance. The self is there and there is no ignorance. That is what this verse is trying to convey. The self plus the five koshas, the three avasthas and the three sharirams is what is called as ignorance. You see, this will require some time to meditate. See, you need to sit down and meditate on some of these thoughts. Then what will happen is, then that message goes deep inside your consciousness. Oh, this is what is being revealed. And then automatically you will say, oh yes, everything is right. What Vidyaranya is saying in this chapter is fantastic. It is there. The self exists and the self alone exists. So the Panchakosha viveka is required to say that the self alone is. The self minus the five koshas is the pure knowledge. Vishaya and Vishayi viveka have to be done. Vishayi means the Chaitanyam. Vishaya means the ego I, the waker I, dreamer I, sleeper. So this is a Vishaya, an object for what? For the Chaitanya, for the consciousness. And what is the consciousness? It is self-evident. You must never forget that. Because that is one of the principal points we should remember, which we learned in the 10th chapter of the Panchadasi. So the nature of the pure knower, the knowing principle, the knowing process becomes clear when you negate the five portions. And then you can say, Aham Brahma Asmi. The God in the pure nature is also consciousness. That Ishvara, the creator of this whole Jagat, is also the nature of awareness. Because he also has the same inner structure. Upadesha Sara has this beautiful mantra, Deshahanataha Swatma Darshanam, Isha Darshanam Swatma Rupataha. One who gives up the conditioning of the mind, he gains the self-realization. And then what Ramana Maharishi says in the second sentence, in the second line, he says, Isha Darshanam Swatma Rupataha. If I come to know that, if I say that I've had the realization of God, that means you have had the realization of the self. Because God realization and self-realization is the same, which is what it is the essence from the Taittiriya Upanishad. This slide here is just a revision of what we have discussed, and the Shunyavadan we have discussed before. In the 11th verse was there was a question that I do not experience this subject, so does it really exist? The answer to that is given from verse 12 to 28, which we are seeing now. Okay, now the next verse, 26th verse. The 26 up to 28th verse is all about the revelation of Jnanam. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahma.
कीदृक् तर्हीति चेत् पृच्छेत् कीदृक् तर्हीति चेत् पृच्छेत् ईद्वक्ता नास्ति तत्र हि ईदृक्ता नास्ति तत्र हि यदनेदृगतादृक् च यदनेदृगतादृक् च तत्स्वरूपं विनिश्चिनु तत्स्वरूपं विनिश्चिनु.
So in this verse, Vidyaranya makes it clear that the self is not an object of knowledge. Any object of knowledge is used, we say this or that. This means pratyaksha. Pratyaksha means the sense organs are perceiving something. So whatever the sense organs are perceiving, it is not the self. So it is not this. If it is not this, is it that? That means what? When do we use the word that? That house in the Ganges. That means what? It is not pratyaksham to my eyes now, but it is paroksham, tadruk. Idruk and tadruk. That is, these are the two words he is using in this verse. Kidruk, tadruk. This and that. So this and that is anatma. Beyond this and that is the self. And it is indescribable. It cannot be described through words. It can only be known as aparoksham. Aparoksham means what? I am that. Kidrak tarhilti chet prichet. If the self is accepted, of what nature it will be, that is what is the question being asked. Tatra idrak nasti. Self cannot be described as this or that. Why? Because the self doesn't have any attributes. It doesn't have any properties. If something has a property, then it can be known by the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, skin. These are all objects. All objects are with attributes. And the self has got no attribute. It doesn't have any attribute because it is not the 5 elements. It is beyond the 5 elements. The sense organs are a product of the 5 elements. The sense objects are also a product of the 5 elements. But the self is beyond the 5 elements. Self has no sound, no color, no form, no touch, no taste, no smell. That is why in Kathopanishad, it says, Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam, Abhyayam, Tatharasam, Nityam, Agandavat. Very beautiful. We have seen this in our meditation sessions. The self is without sound, without touch, without form, without decay, because it is changeless. It is formless. Anything with form will have decay. The body has a form, it will decay. A car has a form, it will get perished. Anything which has got a form will get perished, but formless remains forever. And consciousness is formless. See, each of these Upanishad, they all try to reveal nothing but this pure self. And once you have learned how to understand this self clearly through some methods, like I told you, this method of Vritti Jnanam and Swarupa Jnanam. This one simple technique, if you can understand, if your intellect can understand that, then any of these messages of the Upanishads, you can unravel it. Na tatra chakshur gacchati, na vag gacchati, no manaha, na vigyama, na vidmaha, na vijanimaha. Yathaitat anusishyat, annadeva tad viditat atho aviditat adi. Iti sushrumad purvesham enastat chakshare. That means what? The eye does not go there. The speech does not go there. We do not know that at all. We do not know how to instruct about that. It is distinct from the known and unknown. But what reveals that? What reveals is the Shruti. The Kathopanishad mantra, the Vedantic Upanishad mantra, all the Upanishad mantras, they reveal something which our senses and mind which cannot be revealed. Self is other than the known and unknown. Same thing is in Vedantic Upanishad also. It gives us a lot of properties. It is, and what does it say? It is not short, it is not long, it is not red in color, it is not oily in nature, it is not a shadow or darkness, it is not air or ether, it is unattached, it is without eyes and ears, it is without the mind, without the pranas, it is without interior and exterior. All this is possible in Anatma, in the objects of the universe. But in the subject, nothing is there. None of this is there because it is attributeless. Na iti, neti-neti. That is what is the nature of the self. I cannot say how it is. I heard my gurus explaining to me, and I could understand that. Because the jignasu is very keen to know that. You see, the moment our search is going on in our mind to know our real self, what will happen is when the Shruti comes out and says a sentence to describing the self, immediately our intellect will catch fire. It will go straight and it will point out to that which is revealed by the Upanishad. So here in this message, what is the essence of this verse? It is not this, it is not that. It cannot be thought. It cannot be described. The only thing we can say is it is aham, I. And when I say this I, you should know it is not vachyartha I, it is lakshyartha I. Vachyartha I means what? Whatever is the popular meaning of I is vachyartha, which means this body and mind. That's all. Everybody knows this body and mind as I. That is what is called as vachyartha. When this vachyartha does not fit with the definition of satyam jnanam anantam, then I use lakshyartha. When the popular meaning is not fitting, because this I is finite. Anantam means infinite, always existing. This I of body and mind is not satyam, it is asatyam, because it is an appearance. It is there for some time, it is not eternally existing. So this I, if I use it for body, mind, it cannot stand the definition of satyam jnanam anantam. Therefore, I use lakshyartha, indicative meaning of this I. What is the indicative meaning? It is the Sakshi I. If I take the Sakshi I and apply Satyam-Jnanam Anantam, it fits it perfectly. So this is the way we inquire about our true nature. Whenever we come to Vedanta or we come to Bhagavad Gita and want to know our nature, this is the way we should understand. When we do the Mahavakya analysis, the Upanishad teaches us Vachyartha, Lakshyartha, Swarupa-jnanam, Vritti-jnanam. Use these four things. Swarupa-jnanam, Vritti-jnanam, Lakshyartha, Vachyartha, and arrive at yourself. Give it a try. I am 100% sure each one of you can arrive. Whatever you arrive at, that is the truth. That is the self. It is something which, but you know it is existing. And that is what you are in your sleep state. Always remember that, because that is what the Upanishad says. I am not saying it. It is the Upanishad which says you are in your true nature when you are sleeping. Self has no properties. It can't become an object of this thought or that thought. Asti bhati priyam is the nature of consciousness. This is Ritrisha Viveka. Asti bhati priyam. Asti means existence. Bhati means it's always conscious, self-evident. Priyam. Priyam means ananda. Satyam Jnanam Anantam is the same thing as calling it Asti bhati priyam. And this is not a thought. Asti bhati priyam is not a thought. It is nature. Nama rupam is a thought. Nama rupam is idam, this thought, that thought. So even with this asti bhati priyam and nama rupam, you can go back and understand your nature. Only when the mind wakes up to this pure aham, then only we will be able to drop the anatma. This aham is the substratum adhishtanam. Without the adhishtanam, mithya cannot survive. Without the rope, there is no snake. Without the sand, there is no mirage water. Without Atma, there is no world. Atma is the substratum, adhara. So how to realize the self? Not this, not that. It is not idrik, it is not idrik, it is not tadruk. Okay, now we go to the 27th mantra. Okay, we will take up the 27th mantra next week. 27th mantra is a very important mantra. It talks about the definition of self. How do I describe this self? We will see it next week. There are two verses more for this Jnanam subject. After that, we will go to Satyam and Ananta. Okay, so we will take two more verses for Jnanam, and then we will start with the Satyam analysis. With this, we will stop the Panchadasi and Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachade Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyade. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Does anybody have any questions on today's talk? Or on any topic of the Vedanta? If you have any questions, you can ask me. As you keep listening to these talks and doing these meditations, each one of you will grow very deep inside your mind. You will be able to notice the difference, and you will see that you are able to understand the depth of the knowledge because your purity will grow. The more you hear, the more deeper you will go into your consciousness. Okay, any questions?
Hari Om.
Yeah, Sarut, go ahead.
Yeah. So one question is, when you were talking about the negation of the koshas.
Yes.
Yeah. So my question is, who is the one who is negating the koshas?
It is the jiva.
It is the jiva only, right?
It is the jiva which is identified with the mind. And it is that entity which is, you see, you should know what the jiva is. Jiva is a combination of three things. It is a combination of the reflected consciousness plus the original consciousness, because without original consciousness, there cannot be a reflection.
Yeah.
So one is the original consciousness, which is the pure awareness. Now that is getting reflected in my mind. So the jiva, whenever you say, jiva is always a combination of the reflection in the mind plus the mind. The subtle body, that is the, in simple terms, it means the reflection of consciousness plus the mind is the jiva.
Okay.
Now that is an entity which is there in this gross body. So in this gross body, there is a subtle body. In that subtle body, there is a reflection of consciousness. Now that is what is the individuality. See, that individual doesn't have any gender. That mind doesn't have any gender. The body has a gender. The thoughts do not have a gender.
Yeah.
You see, that subtle body does not have a gender. It is pure by nature. So it is this mind which is negating, it is listening to the talk, and it is negating.
It won't be the intellect, because the intellect is the one which is coming from the place of discrimination.
No, intellect is
part of the mind.
It is a part of the mind.
Part of the mind.
Yes.
Intellect is part of the mind.
You see, when I say mind, it is.
Sorry, it's not the Vijnanmaya kosha. This is the Manomaya kosha.
It is the Vijnanmaya kosha. It is the doer. Okay. That is the ego. You see, the moment you say I, it is the doer.
Okay.
It is that antakaranam, you call it karanam, it is an instrument in which there is a light of consciousness.
Okay, fine. Okay, the other thing, sorry.
So it is a combination of the consciousness plus the mind.
Plus both of them, yes. So it's both of them doing the reflection.
I am the jiva.
Yes.
I am the jiva, yes.
I am the consciousness, and the mind body, the reflected consciousness, the mind.
Yes.
You see, all of us, when Deepak says, I am the jiva, what he means is, in this gross body,
yes, here only it is.
You are seeing only the gross body, you are not seeing the mind.
Yes.
See, he is seeing Saru. Saru is the body. He is not seeing the consciousness. He is not seeing the mind. He is not known to him at all.
Yes.
But mind is known to you. Consciousness is known to you.
And it's a combination of the two which is doing the negation.
Yes, the combination of these two. What happens in the sleep state? In the sleep state, this intellect mind instrument, it becomes passive. It takes a rest. Then it takes a rest. What happens to that reflection of consciousness? It goes back to the original.
Okay.
And it remains with the original till the mind again comes back.
No mind or no mind state. No mind
Yes,
state.
it is no mind state. That no mind state is what is called as the triputi-less. Triputi means there is no pramata. There is no knower of the
Knower.
world. There is no knowing instrument. And there is no knowing object.
Okay. Okay.
When
So,
this triputi is not there, you don't have any vritti jnanam. You don't have any knowledge born in the mind. At that time, what is there? I alone am there, and that alone is called as Sakshi Jnanam.
Witness consciousness.
Witness consciousness has a knowledge.
has knowledge. Has knowledge, right? Yes, it has knowledge
of itself.
of itself.
And that is what the Upanishad is trying to reveal. You see, all the 12 Upanishads we are studying are revealing only this Swarupa Jnanam. They want to get rid of this Vritti Jnanam and says Vritti Jnanam, will drop it. It is Vachyartha. It is the Jiva in the Vyavaharika state.
So it's almost like saying nonsense. You can nonsense without sense.
That's correct. The senses are not there.
Yeah, they're not there. Yeah.
When the senses are not operating, when the mind is not operating, the jiva exists as the pure self.
The jiva exists as the pure self when these are not operating.
Correct. Therefore, the jiva, right now in the waking state, it thinks that it is the body and the mind.
Which is the non-self.
Yeah, which is the non-self, which is the anatma. It is this jiva who gets the knowledge from the study and said, oh my God, is there something new which I didn't know? And that is what is called as the Sakshi Jnana.
In fact, while you were doing the meditation, what was coming to me, it's almost like not recognizing something.
Yes.
Yeah, not recognizing something. And there is pure delight in viewing it.
Yes, that's correct. Pure delight is, it is the bliss of the self.
And not knowing what it is. Like, say, for example, a very spectacular sunset or a sunrise.
Correct, yes.
Very, so it brings a delight and you don't know how it could be.
That's correct. That is where your mind has resolved. You see, whenever the mind is not resolved, you won't have this bliss. So only in a sattvic mind, this is possible. You see, you have made your mind absolutely quiet. In the quiet mind alone, the self can reflect, and you will realize that is my nature.
Okay. Okay. I have one more question, which is, and this is where I totally accept that the Upanishads are the source and it's the Shruti of the Upanishads.
Absolutely. Yeah? There is no other source to reveal this self to me.
Yeah, but there is a doubt. The Sankshipta mind is still there, and I want to put my question forward. And there was one shloka which says, give up the conditioning of the mind, and you gain realization of the self. Okay, but what I'm saying is, if I keep telling myself also this, that is also a form of conditioning. So what are the levels of conditioning that I have to give up?
No, you see, after some time, it will become an automatic process. That's all.
So my question is this not a conditioning process also?
It is not a conditioning process. You are only using the Shruti, whatever is the Veda teaching us. You are saying it is not. That's all.
So
there is no conditioning of the mind. It is only you are trying to bring the knowledge of what is revealed in the Veda. You are trying to recollect that knowledge. That's all.
Saru, if you say Aham Brahmasmi, that's not conditioning of the.
It is not conditioning. You are using.
Acknowledging who I am. I am.
Okay, an acknowledgement and conditioning.
Yes, you are only recognizing your true self. There is no conditioning.
Right.
You see, you are not trying to bring a new thought. It is a thoughtless state which you are saying Aham Brahmasmi. That's all.
And it's a realization.
Yes, it is a recognition of your nature.
Which will be experienced at a point of time by you also.
Yes.
It does not remain only as word, I am Brahmasmi.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
You will come back, you will come to that state through the process as or meditation as we and
Yes.
I don't know, Shekharji, you will.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You see, what the Veda repeats, even in Panchadasi, in a later chapter, Vidyaranya will say, repeat, let the mind keep repeating, Aham Brahmasmi, I am that pure nature. The moment the mind wanders to the anatma, immediately bring it back. Immediately bring it back to the thought, I am the Atma.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. So it is not a conditioning of the mind, it is only reasserting your nature.
Got that. And the last clarification that I have is death is an event, it is not a state. That's why we don't talk about death. We talk about 3 states.
Yes.
So death is an event.
Correct. It is an event. It is just like you going to sleep. That's all.
That's about
You just going to sleep. It just happens. That's all.
it.
It is. In the world, there are few things which happen naturally. Your waking is also natural. Your sleep is also natural. Your dream is also very, very natural. Death is also natural. That's all. You don't have to think about it at all. Let it happen whenever it happens. Little, it just happen. That's all. Your birth is also natural.
Yeah.
See, you enter the body. The Sukshma Sharira enters the body, physical body. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know. It is God's. It is the nature of the world. That is where Ishvara comes in. Till then, you think there is no Ishvara in this world. You see, how do I know there is existence of Ishvara? You ask the question, who is waking me every day in the morning? Isn't there something in this world or in this body which wakes me up? And who looks after me when I'm sleeping? Who looks after this body?
Yeah.
Isn't there some controller of this body who is looking after it? That is what is called as Ishvara. That is the reflected consciousness. The presence of God in every body is the reflected consciousness. Like the sun is reflected in every bucket of water, you have 10 buckets of water. The 10 buckets represent the mind.
Okay.
The Sukshma Shariram. In that Sukshma Shariram, which is connected to this body, the Lord comes and resides there. And it is revealed in the scriptures, in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, in Chandogya Upanishad, in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The creation theory says very clearly what is the Jiva and what is Ishvara. If you want to know what is Jiva, in chapter 4 of Panchadasi, you go to the 11th mantra. Okay. Chapter 4, verse number 11 of Panchadasi gives the definition of Jiva. 11 and 12. Very beautiful description. And there it says very clearly, before that, in the 4th chapter, Swami Vidyaranya, he describes creation. And this creation is from the Lord. He gives examples of 7 Upanishads. From verse number 1 to verse number 10 of chapter 4, Vidyaranya collects all the mantras about creation in the Upanishad and he puts them all together and says, this is what is creation. This is what is Ishvara Srishti. And then he will say, what is the Jiva Srishti? What is the Jiva creating? What is the Ishvara creating? The 4th chapter is a chapter which deals with Ishvara Srishti and Jiva Srishti. And when we come to know about this, we will realize where is the bondage. Who creates this bondage?
Yes, the bondage. Yes, the bondage is there. That is one thing.
Created
Yeah.
by the jiva. When he identifies with the body, he is creating a bondage. And what is freedom? What is moksha? He disidentifies with the body as his self. That's all. Suppose you also, you say, okay, the body is existing, the mind is existing, but I am not connected with the body. The moment you say that, you are a mukta purusha. And only you will realize it. I am a mukta purusha. Just repeat it. Okay, body is acting, nobody can stop it. There is a rule, there is a law of the cosmos by which the body will act.
Sometimes, while the mind is saying, okay, I am not the body, but sometimes there's so much restlessness in the body.
Yes.
So it's like, I'm saying I'm not the body, but I can experience the restlessness in the body.
Yes, it is because it is going through that motion of the prarabdha. Whenever you say there is a restlessness in the body, assume that prarabdha is at work. That's all.
Okay.
Prarabdha is working in my body. Then, and this will happen to you whenever you look at your past experience. Whatever has become past experience, then only you realize, oh my God, it was all my agitated condition. Whenever you become aware that I was in this condition of the mind. It is only Maya, that's all. That is what is called as Maya. You see, the mind churning out thought after thought after thought after thought, and I identifying with that as myself, that is what is called as Maya. And what we try to do is, we try to get rid of this Maya by knowing that I am not the mind, I am not the body, I am the Atma. That is
that does give solace.
That is the whole process of spiritual journey.
That even momentary, it does give a solace. Like, okay,
yes,
I am not that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even if it is 10 minutes, 5 minutes, it gives me that, at least we are in the path.
Yeah.
You see, this is a process. It takes a little bit of time, but we are in the only thing is, all we can say is I am in the spiritual path. And automatically things will happen. It happens. Let it happen.
Yes.
Anybody else has a question?
Sir, I'd like to ask you, what will be the procedure in negating the 5 koshas?
Okay, the procedure initially, what you have to do is take up each kosha and say, I am not the Annamaya kosha.
Oh.
Then you say, I am not the Pranamaya kosha. You see, give it some time. First, you say, I am not the Annamaya kosha. Deliberately, in your mind, when you close your eyes, you tell yourself that for the next 10 minutes, I am going to realize that I am not the 5 koshas, and whatever remains, that is my true nature. That is how you start this meditation, which is called as Panchakosha meditation. Deliberately you say, I experience my body, I see my body in the mirror, and that is not me. That is the first one. Because that body is born from food, it exists in food, and it goes back into the 5 elements. That cannot be me, because it is 5 elements. This whole body is nothing but Panchabhutas. First kosha gone. The moment you finish that, inside that kosha, what controls this body? What controls this body is the prana. There is breathing going on in my body. Throughout the day, involuntarily, without any will, this goes on from birth to death. Somebody is controlling it. I am not the controller. Automatically, it is this breathing which is the life giving force for the body to survive. The 5 pranas, they are the controlling physiological functions of the body. It is not under my control, it is under the control of Ishvara.
Right.
Now, inside this pranamaya kosha is the manomaya kosha. Why do I say inside? Inside means what? It is more subtler. Anything which is subtle, it will control the gross. The pranamaya is subtler than the annamaya, so it will control the food sheath. The mind will control the pranas. What is the mind? Mind is nothing but it is a bunch of thoughts.
Yeah.
Thoughts are just coming, going. Since morning when I get up till night when I go to sleep, thoughts are just flowing throughout the day. That is what is called as manomaya kosha. It is only an instrument in this body, and it is got emotions as the primary content. See, for example, I get very, I have a lot of emotions. I don't make decisions, but it is just thoughts of, going in a pendulum. That is what is the mind. Now, the mind is itself not the controller because it is changing. What the Veda says is, you are not changing. Always say that I am trying to follow what the Veda is trying to teach me. Mind is not me because it is changing, and the Veda says you are changeless. So I drop the mind. Then inside that mind, it is like the like a box. Inside a box there is another smaller box. Inside the smaller box there is another smaller box. Sometimes you have in the kitchen you have a big vessel, inside that a smaller vessel, inside that a smaller vessel, inside that a smaller vessel. So there are 5 such vessels. Then you come and say that in this body, from morning onwards, there is something which says, I am the doer. I am the user of the sense organs. Through the eyes, I see. Through the ears, I am hearing. Through the legs, I am walking. So who is that? That is what is called as the Vijnanamaya Kosha, the doer. And then the Vijnanamaya Kosha is controlling what? Whenever the Vijnanamaya Kosha knows that it will control the mind, through the mind it will control the senses, and then action starts. The last kosha is called as Anandamaya Kosha.
Yeah, that's it.
Anandamaya Kosha is the bhokta. It is the enjoyer. Whenever you experience good actions, it will give you good results, and you will be experiencing joy in the mind, and that is called as vritti. It is coming because of the conducive nature of surrounding and your mind. That is also an experience only. It is a changing thing. That is also is called as the Vijnanamaya Kosha, Anandamaya Kosha. So you have got 5 koshas, and in your mind, if you do this meditation, what will happen is your mind will slowly start going deeper and deeper, deeper and deeper, and then it's like taking a torchlight inside your mind. So once you are gone deeper, at that time you say, whatever is now, I am the Sakshi of all this.
Oh, you take the rule already by the time.
Yes. Okay, Bharti, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Namaste. After a long time, I am interacting with
Yeah,
you.
go ahead.
So, I heard in some Swami Paramarthananda's session that
Yes.
although you understand everything, you cannot reap the phalam of your knowledge.
You can't reach the.
You cannot reap. You cannot get the phalam of your knowledge. Means, so means you don't have adequate sadhana chatushtaya sampanna, he says. So until and unless when we get adequate, means sufficient sadhana chatushtaya sampanna,
Yeah.
then only we can get the phalam of our knowledge. He is saying like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
it's correct. Yeah.
So what are the methods to be a sadhana chatushtaya sampanna? That is my question.
Yeah, see, what you should do is, what sadhana chatushtaya sampanna means is that it is only a purity of mind. You know, the purity of mind you can get by either repeatedly listening to the Shastra.
Okay.
Okay, that is one of the easiest method. You see, you don't have to worry about whether I'm growing spiritually or not. The moment you are listening continuously, what will happen is Atma knowledge will go deeper and deeper. It will remove all the unnecessary thoughts. Whenever unnecessary thoughts which are clouding your mind, they go away. That is what is called as purity.
Purity.
So one of the best methods of getting sadhana chatushtaya sampatti is repeated listening of the scriptures.
Okay.
Okay, and then once you have done that, then what happens is a day will come when you yourself will say, now everything is clear. It happens. It just happens because if you take an impure mind and listen to the Shastra, initially you will find that you're not understanding also something. This knowledge of Atma, Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, in all will go bouncer. You know, you will say, what is this? I don't understand anything. But you ask people in this group who have listened continuously for 4 or 5 years, they understand 100% of what I'm talking. 100%.
Yes.
You'll realize, oh, I'm listening. The more you listen, the more you will see, yes, because see, the concepts of Atma become very clear when your doubts are removed.
Exactly.
When your doubt, see, even a
No
small
doubts.
doubt, if it goes away, you will find that suddenly you will find a huge chunk of doubts gone, means your mind is very clear.
Yes.
Okay, so that is the way to go forward.
Thank you.
Okay, there is a question here by Akshay. If there is a reflection of pure consciousness in each body, like the sun's reflection in a bucket, does it mean pure consciousness doesn't exist in these bodies? It is somewhere else. You see, what you should understand is we are talking about the mind. Okay, so mind itself is very subtle in nature. And you cannot see this mind. You can only know that the mind exists. And in this sort of a formless, sort of invisible mind, there is a consciousness. We come to know this only because of the scriptures. The reflection in the consciousness in the mind, we come to know only because the Upanishad is saying that there is a reflection of consciousness, and this is what is generally termed as anupravesha. It's like graha pravesha. You see, graha pravesha means you enter the house. Similarly, the Lord enters all our houses of the mind. Mind is a house. The Lord enters that house, and then he illumines the mind. That is how each and every mind of a jiva gets illumined. There is a light which illumines all our thoughts. That light which illumines our thought is the light of consciousness. Now, that consciousness lies, it always is there in the subtle body. Always. And there is no action involved in this. Whenever the mind comes up, that reflection comes. And and what happens is you become aware, I am. At the moment you get up in the morning, you become aware, I am. That is what is the reflection in the mind. But in the pure consciousness, were you there or not without the mind? Yes. In what form? Satyam, Jnanam, Ananda. Can that be described? It cannot be described in a positive, direct way, but it can be described in an indirect way. What is the indirect way of Satyam? Satyam means it is pure existence. You remove the body, what remains? Pure easiness. You remove the mind, what exists? Pure I. That is what is Satya. Jnanam. What is Jnanam? It is not Vritti Jnanam. When all the Vrittis are gone, what remains is Swarupa Jnanam. Is this Swarupa Jnanam changing? No, it is not changing. It is Anantam. Anantam represents changelessness. It is limitationless. There is no limitation. That means I am. Right from birth till date, you are saying I am. It is not changing. And that is what is my real nature. So pure consciousness exists in the bodies as Satyam Jnanam Ananda. Always is there. Whether it is there in the body or without the body, it is always existing. It is independently existing. Whereas the body is what? They are existent, but they are dependent on this consciousness for their manifestation. The body is seen in the waking state. Means what? It is manifest. Manifestation means what? My sense organs can perceive the body. What happens in the unmanifest state? Unmanifest means the sense organs cannot perceive the body. That is what is called as unmanifest. So the perception of the body, the non-perception of the body is not the real truth. The truth is the light in which this is happening. And that light is permanent. Always existing, always pure. Akshay, am I clear?
Yes, very nice.
Okay, good. All right. I'm very glad you asked this question. Very deep question. Good. Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much. We'll catch up next week, next Wednesday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you. Thank
Hari
you.
Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om.